I'd like to welcome everyone to an Amherst Writers and Artists Workshop. Today, we're going to provide a glimpse into a hands-on writing workshop with the method. First of all, though, we're going to introduce ourselves. So I'm Lyndi Allison, and I'll be writing today from Coronado, Panama. And I've been working on a young adult fantasy trilogy. Cheryl?
Hi, I'm Cheryl. I am writing from Costa Rica today, and I write women's fiction and working on a novel right now.
Okay, Walter?
Hi, my name is Walter. I'm writing from Montreal, Canada. I am writing my family's anecdotes, and I also am writing an action novel.
Okay, and Celia?
Hi, I'm Celia. I'm in Panama City, Panama, and I am currently writing a biography. I've also written 2 screenplays.
And Brenda?
Hi, I'm Brenda. I'm writing from Stouffville, Ontario, Canada, and I'm writing fiction for women over 50.
Okay, so thank you. We're writing from 3 different countries today. So that's one of the beauties of being able to write in an online workshop. So first of all, I'd like to introduce you to the founder of the Amherst method. Her name is Pat Schneider. She wrote a book called Writing Alone and with Others, and a second one, How the Light Gets In. And she has developed this method that's become so popular now, it's all around the world. She said if she'd known how widespread it was going to be, she wouldn't have named it Amherst after the area in which she lived. But today we'll be writing it first, and then we'll have the opportunity, if we choose to fix our writing later. First of all, I'd just like to introduce you to the philosophy behind the method. And what I really appreciate about the philosophy and the affirmations I'm going to share with you is that they adhere to my own personal values, so it makes it very easy to represent the method. So the philosophy here is that everyone has a strong, unique voice. And that's something that we want to develop in the workshops. And also we want to make sure we appreciate in one another their own unique voice. Everyone is born with creative genius. And we see this so often in children and in their play. And sometimes as we grow, we kind of let some of that go. So this is an opportunity to get reacquainted with that creative genius that we have. Writing is an art form and it belongs to all people. So that's regardless of class, gender, educational levels, political views, everyone. It belongs to all of us. And so we have an opportunity to write as one. The teaching of the craft can be done without damage to a writer's original voice or artistic self-esteem. So the original voice is developed often in some of the prompts that are shared, and we write to those prompts and later on share our writing. And we want to make sure when others comment on it, that we are making sure that we don't damage their voice. And then a writer, quite simply, is someone who writes. And, sometimes we make writing this big thing that, only famous people can do, or people who are more well-known, but really we're all writers. And that's a great philosophy to have so that we can make sure we recognize that in others. Then the essential practices that we adhere to. So everyone's writing, including the leaders, or another good word for that would be facilitators, is treated with equal respect and value. The facilitator isn't necessarily the best writer, and they're just the person facilitating the group. But we treat with respect, whatever level we're at. Sometimes we're starting with a brand new draft and just trying to come out with ideas. And other times, we're writing something we've been writing for a while and the voice is stronger, but we just respect whatever level it's at. And we take time to do that by listening to one another. The writing is kept confidential and treated as fiction. So even if someone's writing a memoir or biography, we treat everything as fiction. So it gives people, you know, a little bit of distance from their own reality to be able to write whatever it is that they need to write. And we never talk about it outside the group. So anything that's written within our group, we don't talk about with anyone else, unless, you know, the writer themselves would like to raise it and has questions, or, you know, we had permission to use it as an example. And writers can refrain from reading their work aloud. So when we write today, you don't have to read, you reserve the right to pass. We hope that you'll find this a really safe space and that you are able to share, and we'll be ready to listen. And then responses to just written work. So this is our raw writing today, that we'll just be responding to what is strong and successful in the piece. We won't be doing any critiquing today. We'll just be identifying, you know, an interesting character, maybe a powerful word or phrase, or what was the overall feeling that the piece left you with. And then we'll, over the course of our writing time together, we have exercises that support the development of craft. And as we identify good things in the craft of others, we learn from others how to improve our own craft. So today, I'd just like to share with you a poem written by a dear friend and a very good writer. She's a Canadian. She lives east of Toronto. Her name is Lisa Reynolds. And this is a poem that she wrote, and with her permission, we are going to use it as our prompt today. And you'll notice that this was published in Pure Slush Books. It's called Like Rebels. Remember that day we sat on the green junction box outside your home, waiting for movers to haul stuff away. We were like rebels, knocking heels of sneakers against metal sides while currents hummed below our bums. Your pigtails braided, my curls flowing free, grape freezies in hand, tongues purple, fingers sticky, laughter between us. Secrets too, of boys and fantasized kisses, and then our goodbye. Bodies squeezed tight, tears falling, my heart breaking until the next day when I saw you at school. Okay, so thank you today to Lisa for her lovely words and for allowing us to share those together today. So we are going to write together for 10 minutes. Our prompt today is going to be remember the day. I encourage you to not sit and think, but to put your pen on the page and keep writing. Even if you don't think you have something that you can say or write, you can write, I don't know what to write next. And probably by the time you've written that, you will know. And we'll write together for 10 minutes. You don't have to write to the prompt. This is to get our pens flowing. If you'd like to pick up on the writing that you're already doing and write for 10 minutes on that, we'd love to hear from you about that as well. So we are just going to take this next 10 minutes, and in 10 minutes, we'll come back and share our writing. Any questions before we start?
Yes. Should I write longhand or should I write something with my computer?
That's a personal preference. I know I switch back and forth. Usually I write with pen in hand in a notebook because for me, the flow of the writing, it helps with that. Sometimes I write directly on the computer. I know that's how you write, right, Walter? You write directly on the computer. So it's definitely a personal preference.
Okay, it doesn't matter for this exercise.
Okay, are you ready to go? Okay, so let's write on remember the day or continue your writing for 10 minutes. Okay, if you'd like to just finish up. And then come back to the group. Have we got someone who would like to read first, or will I be voluntolding you today? Walter? Okay, so as Walter reads, just think about some of the words, the emotion it evokes, whether there's an interesting character, a great description of a setting, if some of the five senses are included. Just identify something that is working in the piece. Okay, thank you, Walter.
I remember the day I left my hometown. It feels like it was only yesterday. It was the end of the summer of 1973, March 2nd. Yes, I remember. It was dark and we were at the bus stop, our few suitcases being loaded onto the big bus. Family and friends surrounded my little family of 5. My best friend David was there. We stood, my arm on his shoulders, his arm around my waist, smiling and talking about nothing. The smell of fuel and exhaust floating in the air, a gentle summer breeze. Let's go for a walk, I suggested. He looked surprised. Don't do anything stupid, said my father. He may have thought that we would disappear and miss the bus. David and I walked in silence. In our young years, we had already shared so much: girlfriends, arguments, teachings of life. That's as far as I got.
Okay, thanks, Walter. So feedback for Walter. What are some of the things you can identify in Walter's writing that are working in the piece? Cheryl, do you want to start?
Sure. Yeah, I particularly loved that it was named March 2nd. Yes, I remember. And the narrator and his friend smiling and talking about nothing, and their past shared girlfriends, arguments, and lessons of life. Those really stood out for me.
Okay, thanks, Cheryl. Celia, anything you could identify for Walter in the piece?
I agree with Cheryl. I like those passages. And the other thing, I like the wistful feeling of the passage, how you sort of reflect back, and you definitely get that in the way that the story is told.
I'm sorry, I missed the first word. Wistful, is that what you said?
Right, like how you feel that, you go back in time and you remember a friend, and it's a warm feeling, and it's something that's past, but it's still very dear to you.
Thank you.
And Brenda?
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said so far. And I like the smiling and talking about nothing. It's such a wonderful reference to so many things in childhood. And, the things that they shared so much.
I like thanks, Brenda. I like the contrast between, we hear about this big bus, and then the narrator describes his family as this little family, a little family of 5. And so I like the way those two things were contrasted. And certainly the smells, that rang really true for me. If a big bus is pulling up, you know, smelling the fuel and the exhaust, that placed me right in the scene with the narrator. So I felt like I was very much a part of where the narrator was at that point. Okay, so thank you, Walter.
Thank you.
Okay, who would like to read next? Okay, Cheryl, thank you.
I remember the day we arrived at the house on the farm. Of course, I shouldn't remember it because I was only 2 years old. We arrived at night and laid down black quilts on what would later become the kitchen floor, and we slept there all together, our little family. When I was 17, we moved away from the farm, kind of. My dad had moved out 2 years earlier to live with Anne, family friend and the woman he'd been getting around with for the past 8 years or so. I had stayed with Mom on the farm, but now it was time to move. Or as I said earlier, kind of. Dad bought the farm from Mom, and this time Mom was moving out, and Dad was bringing his now wife to live on the farm. So I packed up my room, threw out all the old clothes, school papers, piles of Tiger Teen and 17 magazines, pulled down the pictures of Scott Baio and Ralph Macchio from my walls. But for the next 2 years, until Dad sold the farm and moved out west, it was still my room, although I wasn't there.
Okay, thank you, Cheryl. So feedback for Cheryl. Brenda, do you want to start this time?
The piece made me feel like I was right back there. I could feel how the character was young with the references to the magazines and the pictures on the walls. And I really like the ending of It's Still My Room, even when I'm not there. You know, it's just the only place, I don't know, just very nice, nicely phrased, and set the scene really well and made me feel like I was right there with the narrator.
Okay, thank you, Brenda. And Celia?
Yeah, I like the imagery of cleaning out and rebuilding. You know, you pulled everything off the wall, you pulled everything and then you made it there and then you built it again so that it was new and was yours. I really wanted to know more about what happened in that section of what happened to that girl, what happened to the family, what happened to that. I was very curious about your characters.
Okay, thanks, Celia. And we'll just refer to the narrator says rather than you, just so that it keeps it in the fiction realm. Yeah, no worries, no worries. We're all learning together here. That's what this is about. So, okay, Walter, feedback for Cheryl.
I liked very much the quilt on the kitchen floor and everyone sleeping together. That was really a nice image. And yeah, I also liked the part about It's Still My Room, although I wasn't there. I really enjoyed that. I could see myself there. It was like a, you know, in my mind's eye, I could see all of the images that you were that the narrator was describing. Thank you. It was good.
Thank you, Walter.
Nice feeling.
I also liked the black quilt, and what I really liked about the black quilt is it gave me like a picture of the whole room and possibly the whole house as maybe needing some work because of the phrase that came after, you know, putting this quilt on what would later become the kitchen floor. You know, I'm getting this image of an unfinished room that needs some work. And so I thought that was great showing. And then there's, you know, the father's moving out, and then the mother's moving out, and then the father's moving back. And I was thinking, you know, that the narrator, you know, has a lot of, you know, just a lot of changes that are happening. And yet the narrator finds things that are tangible. And I really like the specificity of like the posters and the pictures. We don't just hear that there's pictures on the wall, we hear who the pictures are of. So that also gives us a sense of who that character is based on whose picture they would hang on the wall. And so,
And time,
yes,
a time period.
exactly. You know, without having to state the era, you know, we get a sense of what that time is. Yes, good point, Walter. So thank you, Cheryl. Appreciate that. Okay, Celia, would you like to read next?
The day that I met Cherie Gaines was one that I began with caution. It's just coffee with an old lady who has stories, I said to myself. And by 86, if you don't have any stories, then shame on you. As my dear friend, very convincing friend, pardon me, picked me up, I expected nothing more, pardon me, than to spend an hour sipping coffee with someone who had lost her argument and had to put up with my company. Her apartment was one of those that can be found in Panama City that is an entire floor, the 23rd floor to be exact, with a 360-degree view of the city. Her home was like a museum with cabinets and mementos collected from travels and appreciative clients. What I didn't expect was her beautiful hands. They were strong, forceful, and always above the table when telling me about her victories and hidden when speaking of her personal life.
Okay, thank you, Celia. So feedback for Celia.
I have to say it was very difficult for me to understand.
It was a little hard
The
to
sound.
hear, a little hard
Yeah,
to hear.
It was hard to hear and make sense of it. I could hear words here and there, but I couldn't make the sound was a problem.
Yeah, we had a little bit of.
Sorry.
Are you able to try the sound a different way and try rereading it for us, Celia?
Sure, let's see. I don't understand why. I don't understand why my volume is so bad.
It's not a matter of volume, it's the sound. Do you have a headset maybe? We can try that.
Is that any better?
Yes, that's better.
Sounds a bit better. Yep.
It's not echoey.
Looks like it will only go up so far. All right, well, let's try. Is this better?
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
and if you can keep your head up too, so that we can your voice is getting picked up, that would be helpful.
Great. The day I met Cherie Gaines was one that I began with caution. It's just coffee with an old lady who has stories, I said to myself. And by 86, if you don't have any stories, then shame on you. As my dear, very convincing friend Francis picked me up, I expected nothing more than to spend an hour sipping coffee with someone who had lost her argument and had to put up with my company. Her apartment is one of those that can be found in Panama City. That is the entire floor, the 23rd floor to be exact, with a 360-degree view of the city. Her home is like a museum with cabinets filled with mementos from her travels and appreciative clients. What I didn't expect was her beautiful hands. They were strong, forceful, and always above the table when telling me about her victories and hidden when speaking of her personal life. Is that better?
Yes, it was. Okay. Walter, did you still want to comment first, or?
I didn't take any notes. It was still not perfect sound-wise. It's making it difficult to follow up. But I could, I enjoyed hearing about, the 23rd floor and having a 360-degree view of the city. Must be really impressive. did you talk about hats? Was the narrator talking about hats? Did I understand that correctly?
Hands.
Oh, hands.
Yeah.
Okay. A museum, the museum part and the mementos, that's what I got. And I would be curious to find out more about that. That's pretty much what I can comment because, as I said, the sound wasn't the best.
Okay,
Sorry.
no worries, no worries. Brenda, do you want to jump in with comments?
I love the home like a museum with all the stuff that she's gathered, and I like the at 86, if you don't have stories, then shame on you. I also like the fact that the hands really struck the narrator, and that when the 86-year-old was telling her story, she had her hands above the table, and that they were strong and forceful. But above the table is really struck me as something very important to the overall picture of this character.
Thanks, Brenda. Cheryl?
Yeah, I echo what Brenda just said, but I also wanted to add, the line at the beginning. It's just coffee with an old lady who has stories, I told myself, which really, it really brought me in, because now I was curious that I'm thinking this is a little better than just coffee with an old lady who has stories. And again, with the beautiful hands that were strong and forceful and always above the table when she's talking about her triumphs. And I'm so curious and intrigued about this 86-year-old woman who, I mean, she's not just telling her stories, she's talking about her triumphs. So I'm really, really intrigued, and I would love to know more about this. Thank you for sharing.
Thanks, Cheryl. I got the impression at the start that the character was maybe a little bit anxious about meeting with her, and she was maybe doing some self-talk about, telling herself it's just, that's all it is, relax, you're just going to hear this person's stories. And so I got a sense that this older woman who she's going to meet with is probably someone of some significance. And she's trying to bring it down to a basic level so that she can just go have coffee and hear about this woman's triumphs. And so, immediately I'm intrigued, who is it that she's going to meet with? And she's got an apartment that takes up the entire floor with this grand view of the city. And so, right from the very start, I'm getting a sense of the narrations, maybe, I don't know, maybe if awe is the right word, but something along those lines about who this person is, and going to that person's home, observing their home, observing them as they are there to hear the stories. So that's kind of the overall sense that I got. Okay, thank you. Okay, so Brenda, are you going to read for us next?
Sure. I remember the day, hands pink with cold, nose runny, cheeks rosy. 'Twas 20 below, I'm told. We set up tents and banked the snow to insulate against the cold, 6 young girls, 60 boys, winter camping fun. Sounds like fun, looks like fun. No chance to run. You've been chosen, the chosen 6. Keep up, chin up, build a fire with the sticks. All is frozen cold as heck. Girl Guides don't say hell. Snow so deep and wind so strong, it wasn't going well. My nostrils froze together, snot frozen on my lips, feet numb, so cold, stomp, stomp, try not to slip. Look like you're having fun, smile, it's all okay. Make them think you're having fun on this miserable winter day. The only girls who were chosen, well, gee, what a treat. All I want to do is go home by the fire and feel its heat. I cannot feel my fingers. I cannot feel my feet. I cannot for the life of me see why we must compete with stupid boys on this frozen winter day. Who invented winter camping anyway?
Okay, thank you. Okay, so feedback for Brenda. Okay, Celia, would you like to start?
The narrator put me right there, exactly where I just loved it, but it was right there, remembering everything that I hate about the cold and the winter. So the narrator put me exactly right. I just loved it, and I think that it was very. I have to admire the way the narrator was able to make a rhymes and poems and not just free verse. So that takes a lot, very short period of time.
Okay, thank you, Celia. Okay, feedback, Cheryl, for Brenda.
Sure. I love it. Just starts with hands pink from the cold, runny nose. You're outside in Ontario in the winter. That's there's no question of that. And then, you know, it's going along and it starts to pick up the cadence and the rhythm and the rhyming, and then there's just little things thrown in there. You know, it's so descriptive. You're right in the moment, and then it wasn't going well. Yeah, okay. I'm getting that. And then, you know, make them think you're having fun on this miserable day. And who invented winter camping anyway? Yeah, it was cute, but it was beyond just cute. It was so evocative of, you know, being a child, tween, teen, something like that, in the winter snow. You know, you're being rewarded for something by being kind of tortured. It was all in there, and yeah, it was a lot of fun too. So
Okay. Thanks, Cheryl. Walter, feedback for Brenda.
Walter's muted.
Brenda, you wrote a poem. It's beautiful. I was amazed all through your reading. I loved the rhythm, the reading intonations, the childhood that came out of it, joy, amazement. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter, for feedback. I really felt the cold even before I was told the temperature, you know, but based on the description about the character. And I liked how these were our 6 chosen girls to go to winter camp with the boys. Like this was something very, very special in someone else's mind, not the character's mind. And you know, we're really getting a sense of the cold when we start to see like the snot frozen on the lips, and you know, it's just such a tangible visual. It puts us right there, and it really. I personally, as the audience, was having fun with it, even though, you know, the narrator's experience of it was, you know, like they weren't having fun, but the way they described it made it kind of fun to hear about. So rather enjoyed that. Thank you, Brenda. I will read next. The library smelled of new books, ones whose spines had yet to be cracked. I chose to read the last in a series. You chose 3 thick volumes with red covers. We couldn't pass the shelf on wheels the clerk pushed near the exit door without buying books someone decided the library would no longer carry. Here, I found a copy of the classic that was missing from my set. 25 cents, the cashier told me. You asked, can I read it first? I smiled, said yes, but also added, take care of it. You promised you would. Later, when you called, your voice trembled. You said you were reading by the pool. And when you went to check on supper, it had rained. You returned my book, pages warped, dampened by the rain, and now the ones that fell as tears. Okay, so feedback on that piece. Would you like to go first this time, Cheryl? Okay.
Yeah, your voice trembled. You were reading by the pool. I just, oh, no, no, no. But then it surprised me that it didn't fall in the pool. I'm like, yeah, but it had rained, and it was returned wet, all the pages wrinkled, wet from the rain and from the friend's tears. And I just thought, okay, all is forgiven if the person has cried over the book. So in my mind.
Okay, thanks, Cheryl. Walter, did you have something to add?
I wanted to say it's a conversation. So that was, well, it felt like a conversation, although the narrator is addressing the other person. There is no return, but it felt like a conversation. It was very poetic. I like that. And at the end, pages falling as tears, that was a beautiful image. I liked it very much.
Thank you, Walter. Celia?
I would agree with the rest of the comments, but I also like the contrast between the new books that haven't been cracked open yet, and yet at the end, here's this book that has been through such a life. I love that complete circle, and I also love. I understood from the narrator the deepness of the friendship, which I thought was lovely, just lovely.
Okay, thank you. And Brenda, any final comments?
I echo what everyone else said, but I like the endearing quality of it. There were the books that were brand new in the library with the spines that hadn't been cracked, and then there were the ones that the library doesn't need anymore, or they're not going to carry for whatever reason. And here's this book that you get the impression is either very used or not wanted at the library, but it completes her set, and then loaning it to the friend, and it's so impactful that it makes the friend cry. So it seems like a very dear and precious book. Maybe the library should reconsider stocking that one. Very endearing. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So this is just a glimpse then into an AWA workshop. In a typical workshop, we would offer 3 writing prompts. We would write together for 3 times, and we would share and provide feedback. And we thank you for joining us today. And I thank you, my participants, for giving us a little demonstration and a glimpse into what an AWA workshop looks like. Thank you.